my goodness, you guys are here too.
Try to make a leave. So dedicated. She tried it, I taught it off to us. I misremember. I thought that
Member Wood?
Present.
Member Dr. Coe?
Here.
Member Noack?
Here.
Member Abraham?
Here.
Member Stennett?
Here.
Member Jacobs?
Here.
Member Durr?
Here. All right, we will be voting on personnel separately in the consent agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, Matt will proceed into public comments. We'll hear in-person comments in the order that they were received. Each individual will have up to 3 minutes for their comment. The board secretary, Member Jacobs, will let you know when your time has expired, and public comments will proceed for 1 hour. We have Tammy Caballero.
Good evening. I'm going to make it quick. I was, coincidentally, you guys are meeting tonight, and there were posts being posted by students, as well as a rumor that Coach Tressel is going to be returning back as a teacher on Thursday, and that he, and this is hearsay, but that he was bragging about a settlement or something to that effect. I'm not sure. But I just wanted to primarily say that that's why, you know, I'm here, right, because I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know if that's true or not. But what I know is that my son is at Niles North with a vacant apartment, that we're paying for that, right, because we didn't know that we could do an internal transfer. His friends are at West. Was living on hope, right, like trying to get by with all of these other accommodations and sacrifices and rearrangements in his life and his academics and so on and so forth, and plus the commute for us, right, to get him there and back, etc., that he would be able to be back at West, where he chose to go, right, amongst the other options that he had, to be with his friends, right, that he's known since he was very little, and to ultimately graduate and be back on the field, because this was the first year he wasn't on the field since he was 7 years old, this past football season. So I'm not sure if that is what, but my whole thing is for, if I could ask you guys to think about it, and some could say it's a fair comparison and some maybe not, but would we expect a domestic violence victim, whether that's emotional, physical, or verbal, to cohabitate with their abuser? By removing Terrestrial off of the football field, that's only like half of the whole issue, not just with my son, but with others. Many, many others. Some because of the retaliation, which we were fearful of in the very beginning, that I mentioned to Krillage and to Jeremy Christian with the FOIA Act, right? We got those emails, but they, you know, conveniently, a lot of the things are blotted out where my son's name and my name was leaked, which put him at risk, which is why we ultimately ended up, right, moving him to Niles North. I mean, that's like a huge thing. And I also, lastly, want to make a point to say that it didn't start with my son and myself. People think that we just opened up, you know what I mean, some problems or fabricating things. No, that is not the case at all. As a matter of fact, there was an attempt to reach out to the district by the Sun-Times, because last year, like around September, coincidentally, Teresa's kid was born, so he was on paternal leave, but was ultimately placed on additional leave and was not allowed to attend the varsity football banquet. And so when that was trying to be dug into, everybody is hush-hush. Everyone is forgetting what this is about. It's about our kids coming to a safe place, which educators that care about the kids and do what's in their best interest, you know what I mean? Not bully them, you know, speak badly of them, put them in fear, and have me as a parent trying to do everything that I can, not just for my kid, it's bigger than my kid. It started with my kid, but it's bigger than my kid.
Time is
We
up.
can't have toxic individuals.
All right.
You know what I mean? Like, and then it's just, we're robbing, right? Particularly my son, of memories, you know what I mean? He's not himself anymore. He started counseling as well. So, I mean, I don't know what's really going on. No one's communicating. All I'm saying is that I'm hoping this district understands what's just and what's important, and that's my kid and all the other kids.
Thank you for your.
That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Next, we will have comments from, thank you for your comments and your advocacy and your concerns. Next, we'll have comments from our board student representatives. First, we'll hear from Amara from Niles West, and then Ashley from Niles North.
Hi everyone, I'm Amara, the board rep for Niles West. To start off, in the English department, the results for Miss Swanson's essay charities have been disclosed. This is an event where sophomores write essays about different charities that they research that then gets presented and voted upon. It's a huge achievement. They raised almost $750 for the following charities: Feed the Children, Misericordia, and Leader's Dog for the Blind. In addition, the Niles West Girls Wrestling Program hosted the second annual Girls Wrestling Invite with more than 275 attendees. And along with this, the Niles West FEX robotics students hosted a tournament with 34 teams, all competing. 2 Niles West teams paired up in elimination rounds and were crowned the tournament champions. They're now qualified for the state championships, where they will compete at the end of February. And as a part of this year's Arts Appreciation Show on December 12th, the students at Niles West have chosen to recreate The Lion King as a new performance called Roar. This year, the students from the Special Education Department were essential in making this event possible. They collaborated with peer leaders and developed the costumes, script, set, choreography, etc. All proceeds from ticket sales at the show will be donated to Will's Place, a local nonprofit organization in Skokie, Illinois that gives job opportunities to people with disabilities. And furthermore, I'd also like to note that the junior cabinet has officially begun planning the senior prom. A Google form was sent out to the senior class, and a theme has finally been chosen and will be revealed this Friday. Finally, I think it's very important to highlight how some of our schools' philanthropic clubs are making a lasting impact. Dance Marathon has selected the Chicago Refugee Coalition as their beneficiary for the 2024 to 2025 school year. The CFC is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to providing support to refugees in the Chicagoland area. One of their events, like the annual Dance Marathon thrift store, recently occurred, and all proceeds will go to the Chicago Refugee Coalition. And another recent event was a Dance Marathon V show, in which many students performed, raising $500 for the CFC. That's all. Thank you.
That's a lot.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education and D219 community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As one of the student representatives, I'm here to share an update on the impactful initiatives happening in our school. Initiatives that reflect our community's dedication to growth, collaboration, and make a difference beyond the classroom. While it's easy to focus on achievements and highlights, I also want to spotlight the meaningful work that addresses deeper needs and creates positive change. One of our standout clubs this year is HOSA, our school's medical club. In just 4 years, HOSA has grown from 30 to over 100 members, with 10 proudly advancing to international level this year. HOSA has been working tirelessly to create change in our community, starting with a recent bracelet-making activity that resulted in over 70 handmade bracelets for the children at Lurie Children's Hospital. This effort was not only a testament to the kindness and creativity of our students, but also a way to bring joy to young patients and show our support for families navigating difficult times. In addition to this, HOSA is planning a community day centered on raising awareness for the National Marrow Donor Program. This initiative will educate attendees on the importance of bone marrow donation and how it saves lives, while also offering ways for individuals to get involved. It's incredible to see our students campaigning health equity and encouraging life-saving action within our broader community. Student Council has also been working on a women's panel to partner with the yearly Feminine Products Drive. This initiative highlights the contributions and challenges faced by women in our school. We've observed how the women of our school can sometimes be overlooked, and we aim to foster a culture of inclusion and recognition. Additionally, this initiative addresses how certain clubs can feel more exclusive to girls who want to join, promoting a more welcoming environment for all students. Next, I want to highlight the work of the Minority Student Achievement Network board members. Recently, they attended the MCN conference at Michigan State University, where they developed a plan to address equity gaps they identify within our school. During this trip, they were inspired by talks from renowned equity leaders, including Ms. Flint, as well as a panel of African American leaders from the East Lansing area. They also participated in immersive lectures led by professors on various health equity topics. Our MSAN members chose to focus on the process of becoming an incoming freshman and how the availability of information impacts students' high school careers. To address this, they planned a day to educate 8th graders about the opportunities available at our school. Moreover, they proposed hosting a panel featuring African American students to discuss their experiences with higher level classes. This effort is designed to combat the stigma and fear many students of color feel when considering honors and AP classes, fostering a more inclusive and supportive environment. These efforts highlight how our students are not only engaging in extracurricular activities, but also connecting their passions to causes that matter, whether it's through promoting health and supporting peers or addressing important social issues. These initiatives are shaping our school's culture and fostering a spirit of service that extends far beyond our walls. Thank you for supporting these opportunities and for allowing our students the space to lead, create, and inspire. I look forward to sharing even more updates as the year progresses. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Amara and Ashley. It's always refreshing and motivating to hear about the inspiring and positive things our student body engages in.
President Durr, I do just want to point out that these two friends, while they were waiting for us, were actively working on their homework. So,
Well, that's to be commended. All right. Next, we have approval of the consent agenda. We will pull item B from the consent agenda and vote on that separately. Does anyone have anything else they need to pull off the consent agenda?
not pull, but I do want to note a clarification in the November regular minutes. On page 4, there was a substantive change that I noted and sent over. I believe Melissa has since updated that document. For one of the policies, I believe it was about curriculum, it noted that member Noack and member Coe voted absent, but they in fact had voted nay. So that has been updated and reflected, so I just want to make sure that we all are aware on what we're voting on.
Okay, that was the email you had sent, right? Okay. All right. In that case, we have a motion to approve items A, C, and D on the consent agenda, including the update that Member Wood just talked about.
So moved.
Second.
We have a roll call.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Stennett?
Yes.
Member Abraham?
Yes.
Member Wood?
Yes.
Member Dr. Coe?
Abstain?
Member Noack?
Abstain?
Member Noack?
Yes.
And Member Durr?
Yes. All right. We have a motion to approve item B on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a roll call.
Member Stennett?
Yes.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Abraham?
Yes.
Member Noack?
Yes.
Member Wood?
Abstain?
Member Dr. Coe?
Abstain?
Member Durr?
Yes. All right. Next, we have order of business. First on the agenda is summits update for semester 1 discussion. And I believe instead of Dr. Wells, who is not feeling well today, we will have Dr. Haskins and Mr. Christian and Mr. Felton.
While Melissa's setting up, good evening, members of the board and our viewing public who's here and watching online. I'm pleased to kick off tonight's business agenda in collaboration with Niles North Principal Marlon Felton and Student Activities Director Susie Shaba. Tonight we will very briefly highlight updates and planning developments on the Unity Summit. a district-sponsored initiative. We have discussed this initiative and developments in previous board meetings, public board committee meetings as well, but in the spirit of collaboration, communication, and community engagement, we wanted to close out the semester with another update. First, I also want to say that we are honored to present on behalf of many teachers, support staff members, administrators, building administrators, and district administrators who have put considerable amount of work into planning for this initiative and leading this initiative. So the next couple of slides, they're just a brief refresher of the overarching goals and the framework of the Unity Summit. It's really largely focused on belongingness and school connectedness. And we know that relationships and trust are foundational in belongingness and really our pathway toward inclusion and appreciation for diversity as our strength. These are essentially aspects of the portrait of the graduate that we want for all of our students: 21st century skills, character traits, and social emotional competencies. The Unity Summit framework and educational value, they're rooted in our D219 equity framework, which is aligned with ISB school wellness targets of social emotional learning, anti-bias education, and a positive, safe, healthy school climate. And our big pillars are awareness, empathy, and solidarity. Essentially, increasing our own social consciousness, understanding who we are and others, and then building empathy, kind of experiencing or putting ourselves in the shoes of others and their lived experiences. And solidarity is really when you see injustice or differences in disproportionality, disparities. We know more, we see more, we can't unsee it, and so we become cultural ambassadors. And so this is the crux of what we really wanted to share as an update this evening. And as I stated earlier, the school teams leading this work have collaborated across departments and school sites since the summer. First, logistics. And the logistics team, there are 3 buckets and 3 groups. They were developing a coherent program schedule for the day, which includes event management provisions for registration, check-in, attendance, supervision. The stakeholder engagement group and communication group, they focused on messaging, articulation of the goals, as we outlined earlier, communication strategies, channels for communicating and engaging the community so that they feel informed, engaged, excited to promote. And then finally, the content implementation and support group and effort. They provide guidance and support with session content, planning, vetting those sessions, seeking out session ideas, workshop ideas, reviewing the objectives, making sure that the objectives align with the equity framework, and supporting the facilitation and instructional delivery as we would in a classroom unit or lesson. These are just a few broad program detail highlights, which incorporates a blend of student leadership, adult facilitation, adult student co-facilitation, and overall strategies to mobilize, engage, and excite our school communities. Now, our intent to educate, engage, and empower our students summits are intentionally designed to influence student voice, leadership, community engagement in ways that reflect the best aspects of our culture for a stronger school climate. I'm going to turn it over to Principal Felton and Student Activities Director, Ms. Shaba, to provide an illustration of what this model and framework looks like in implementation. So you don't necessarily have to wait until the spring to see it happen, but you can kind of see it, how it unfolds, how this model unfolds on a smaller but equally impactful scale.
Yeah, thank you again for having us tonight. We're going to talk a lot. I'll talk multiple times tonight. We're going to talk a lot about community and sense of belonging. But really just doing something together, partnering with our students, our staff, really helps to create that sense of belonging and makes that impact on our students, on our school community, and makes that feeling or sense of belonging matter. So our summits are designed to center student voice and agency, promote student leadership. That's that partnership. They lead a lot. In regard to the Latinx Summit, we worked passionately and diligently with our club sponsors and our students, and that was to make sure we engaged our entire school community to educate, raise awareness, and just celebrate our differences and bring everyone together. It's my pleasure to introduce, she is our interim student activities director. She did have a late jump on the summits, but she dove right in. She created opportunities for the students through her leadership, their leadership, our staff's leadership, and she really did lead the way on building that community and creating a sense of belonging. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our interim student activities director, Ms. Susie Shaba, and she'll talk to you a little bit about the day of programming and some of the planning for our Latinx Summit this year.
Thank you, Marlon and Rosina. Good evening, everyone. Sorry. So this is a sample of what our schedule looked like in the day of programming for the Latinx Summit that we curated. The one piece that I would really like to highlight is we were able to bring in a wonderful keynote speaker by the name of Yosimar Reyes, and he identifies as an undocumented, queer, first-generation individual, and he uses poetry as a way to express himself and essentially find his way through his identity. And so we were able to bring him in, and he was really able to speak to the students and coach the students and help them find their ways and find their identity and go through their own journey through being a Latinx individual. And so the students throughout the day were able to participate in various workshops. They did do a writing workshop with Yosimar, so he was able to host that, again, working with them on their identity. And then they worked on identity murals and music and dancing. And then they were able to do lunch and music. And then we ended the day for the students with a very active celebration at the end where they were able to participate in more cultural components through celebration, through arts, and through music.
And history.
And history. And again, this is another snippet of what the day looked like. The top portion talks about Yosimar and what he is known for and what he brings to the table when he comes to schools to speak with students. And then this, I don't know if we have time, but this is a short highlight reel of the day of the event that we would really love to share out so you can see what the students experienced.
Let's try it here. Here we go. Hopefully we can. This wonderful opportunity to bring students and adults together to embrace each other through music, art, food, and celebration.
This was a very special day for me. I was able to really connect with other people, and everyone did such a good job at planning this. There was so much hard work and effort put into planning the summit.
This is actually the first year that we've had our Latinx Summit. We've been planning it since like last year. It's just so important to show that we all have our differences, and yet we're gonna be so connected. It feels so cultural, and to experience that in school is something amazing.
For me, it hits home because I'm an immigrant myself. So to me, it's important just to represent, to support, make me feel like there's people that look like me. There's people that really make me be proud of who they are.
Make sure that when this event occurs, our students walk away happy, feeling loved, they go home to tell their families, and then we can repeat this for years to come. Showing your pride is just so incredibly beautiful, and people who didn't come today, I hope that the people who did come, we can talk to other people about it and spread all the information and everything we got out of today.
So we close out with 2 quotes and a final thought. The first quote on the left reminds us of organizational culture and climate. Culture is who we are, and climate is how we feel. The other quote reflects the things that make up culture and drive climate. Like, the first quote talks about experiences and norms and relationships and teaching and learning. But the other quote talks about why it matters. Community is much more than belonging to something. It's about doing something together that makes belonging matter. And so that's how we kind of center the planning that we're doing with intentionality. We center, aspects of these quotes within our planning. And before we open the floor for questions and discussion, we do want to acknowledge the board's role in the planning and our planning efforts. The past public board meetings and board committee meetings, you've challenged us to be more intentional and explicit in showing educational value for all students, and you've influenced our own sense of self-accountability and how we manage time, space, resources, in examining content, and how we inform, engage, and excite our broader community. So we do appreciate the longer runway that you've provided us and have encouraged us, but we wanted to just give you a taste of like what that framework looks like, and what we can expect. In each of the summits, the smaller summits, they are pouring into building the Unity Summit at large. So open the floor to your questions.
Well, this is really great work. I'm really looking forward to seeing this unfold, and yeah, I think that last quote right there hits it home. Doing something together significant that makes it matter. Member Wood?
This was beautiful. Thank you. Especially hitting home on the educational aspect of it. I'm looking forward to, at the Unity Summit, President Obama just recently spoke about the concept of pluralism, right? Of living together and coming to a greater understanding. And I'm looking forward, that's kind of my framework for what I'm looking at the Unity Summit for. So when is the festivities planned? I know you mentioned some of the smaller summits. I'd love to know kind of the full calendar that we can expect, and also when we're gonna have an opportunity to hear back about those other summits and the opportunities they provided to our students.
We're going to keep this on the agenda regularly. We'll give another update. So we will have, we're targeting April 4th and April 9th for the Unity Summits at their respective schools. And we just wanted to make sure that we were looking at like our calendar carefully, testing dates and things like that, and other, educational, academic, school program, scheduling and activities that were going on. And then we will, we have confirmed that there will be the, so it's the Black Student Summit, which will be in February, and you're going to be hosting.
I'll be in North will be hosting the Black Student Summit in February, and the Minnesota Summit in April. And we have partnered with Niles West to just be the host site, try to find the least disruptions to the school, utilizing the Skyloft, utilizing our auditorium on those off-peak times, and just with the space, it's a great experience for our students and our staff. We know it's a little hardship for the West team to get over there, but they did a great job of getting over there and participating during the Latinx Summit. So we work well with each other.
Great job. It was beautiful. Looking forward to the rest of them.
Thank you.
Very much. Okay, next we have on the agenda the ACT Practice Program discussion and action. Christine.
Good evening. Last month, we discussed the transition to the ACT as the Illinois accountability measure, as well as the specific strategies D219 would implement to support our students during this transition. One of the strategies mentioned was the ACT practice program. Like we talked about last month during the academic presentation, the best test prep is good instruction, and we know that's happening in our classrooms. But we also know that test prep programs help reduce anxiety for students. They provide opportunities for students to become familiar with test and structure, and unfortunately do come at a cost. So hopefully with the approval of this ACT prep program in our district, we are also removing a barrier for students who may not be able to access those ACT prep programs. So without further ado, Ms. Julianne Evans and Mr. Steve Partner, APOs at Niles West and Niles North, are here tonight to present information about the program we hope to offer to our students.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christine. Good evening, everybody. As Christine stated, we're here to talk about the ACT preparation program. It's a free opportunity for our students to help them improve their scores in the spring. This year, our plan is to partner with Academic Tutoring Test Prep. In the memo, you have all the information, but I'll break down a little bit about the program so you have an idea of what it may look like. So it's taught by our District 219 instructors. The ACT program will work with them and provide a training at both Niles West and Niles North for those staff members who are interested in participating in the prep. We will provide our students with a pre-test so we can get some baseline data of where they are. The goal is for us to start the program in mid-February, which then would lead up to our testing date, April 8th. That's when we'll be taking the ACT. In between then, the week right before, there'll be a boot camp where students can also participate and get testing strategies, learn about the program, and as Christine stated, familiarize themselves with the ACT, because obviously we're switching over from the ACT. With the goal to just reduce some of that testing anxiety that comes forth with high stakes testing.
I would say we looked at a variety of programs, obviously, before just, picking and going with one. We really felt that this particular program that is offered has a little bit of everything, right? There's some digital practice, but the most important thing was this one allows our teachers to continue to work with our kids. And so it trains our staff who our students are most comfortable with, who, know the students the best, to present this material and these test strategies and these skill updates to be prepared. And so we really felt that that was the best of both the digital worlds and that in-person instruction.
Some of the schools in the area that have worked with this program is Barrington High School, as well as the main district as well. Any questions?
Right, so you can have up to 300, so we're, and if we're full, we would hope that would be about approximately 150 each school, if it were even, or just, slightly off. As of last year, I know that for the SAT program, North offered 4 different classes, and I believe West had 6, if that sounds right. So we look to we assume it will be somewhat similar. Obviously, we'll take our students then and our number of staff and figure out how many appropriate classes there, but the max would be about 150 per school.
Okay, so we're forecasting it based off of the SAT before. Okay.
Similar for juniors, of course, yeah. So just assuming the interest level would be about the same.
Okay, Member Wood?
So that actually leads to a little bit of my question. Is this just for juniors, or is this anyone who wants to prep, for example, for the PACT, which assumably we will be dealing with next fall? Is this also for them, or is this exclusively for juniors or primarily for juniors?
So this prep is exclusively for juniors, but there is some supplemental materials that we can provide for other students as well, as far as like resources go.
Okay, I'm just thinking about these kids who've done from the 8th grade up as PSATs, and now suddenly they're on this brand new test. That the anxiety, I imagine, is not just for the juniors.
So this particular quote is for the paid program. Some of the other resources that we looked at that didn't include the live instruction or our instructors that maybe were more just digital, some of those have a free program. And so we are still working on how to kind of combine those and have access for maybe those younger students or students that can't commit to, you know, an in-person instruction.
Yeah, and I think one of the pieces as well, what we're presenting tonight is for the junior program at the best possible option we can provide. As I shared last month, we are on a tight time frame because of the recent announcements by ISB as of, you know, the early November, in which they share the available, you know, the dates, the platform, and available resources. So we're working off of what we might have from ISB. So one of the things that I think, remember what you had suggested and we had also planned for was, what are some ways we can work with our teachers as a whole to support just some of the strategies and things in the classes on a day-to-day basis? That would be some of the supplemental pieces that they alluded to.
We're also planning to do a digital readiness check, which will hope all our students just prepare and for the program in the new format as well.
Member Noah?
Thank you. I have just two questions. How does the cost of this program compare to last year's SAT preparation?
So this is definitely more expensive. College Board had a partnership with Khan Academy that allowed for completely free resources for students. And so all that we had paid for as a district were the stipends for our teachers to facilitate those SAT prep sessions. Unfortunately, there aren't as many free resources available through the ACT partnership with ISB. And so we wanted to make sure we had something for sure that we could provide our students and appropriate training for our teachers. And like Ms. Evans and Mr. Parther shared, we explored a lot of things, and this was really the option that best fit what we thought would work best with our students.
My last question was, will there be like a feedback loop from the students and the teachers who participate in this so that they could pass along their comments in terms of constantly improving? So for, you know, next year's groupage, if they identify some issues, perhaps maybe that could be something that we could just build on and improve.
Yeah, absolutely. We can work that into, you know, whether it's their last session or is it some sort of electronic of some sort. So that can absolutely be built into our personal instructors, you know, gathering with their particular students.
Yeah, and one of the pieces I think which is really valuable is the baseline assessment that Steve had mentioned. That in itself will help us see the growth of the students in the program in comparison to the growth of the students who aren't in the program. So that's another data point that we can utilize to look at the effectiveness.
Question. And maybe I missed this, but how are the students selected that are going to participate in the program?
So the students that are selected, this is obviously a program that is offered, and if they want to be doing it, so Steve and I will work with our staff as well for communication out to juniors, and then of course we will at some point have to set a deadline for registering for that class.
So it's voluntary.
Yep.
So they're
Yes.
going to volunteer.
Right.
Are we going to ensure that maybe some of our students who may need that, you know, this kind of preparatory class, that they're going to be selected, or that they would be at least considered?
Yeah, absolutely. We can work with the counselors on that piece of any juniors who need it.
Yeah, and it's, you know, the numbers that we're projecting for this program are based on previous years, and to my knowledge, we've never rejected anyone.
No.
So if we get to a point in which we have to prioritize, which we don't anticipate, we would also look at other options because we wouldn't want to not provide our students with that opportunity.
I just want to ensure that, like, you know, those students who may not volunteer but may need that, that they're, that they're being considered. Yeah, thank you.
Voluntold? One other question I had. How much of an improvement have we historically seen in the past for similar with the SAT?
So for this particular program, they mentioned 3 to 5 points as far as their improvement goes.
Sounds like a good return on investment. Member Wood?
I'm given to understand that in the AVID classroom, they do a lot of the SAT prep, and I believe they've started some ACT prep. Is that prep very similar to what this is? Are you going to feed in back and forth? What does that kind of look like?
That's a great question.
Why, thank you.
So it's actually very similar. I actually observed Mr. Baker. He's one of our AVID teachers, and it was very engaging. They used multiple modalities. Students were enjoying themselves, having fun with it, because some of this material, maybe difficult, right, as far as the testing prep, but it was very, very engaging for all the students. Dr. Haskins was able to see a lesson as well.
And I believe this is the same training that he had participated in. And so very much similar, and which is why we also had the idea of what are other ways that we can train additional teachers, even if they're not participating in this particular program.
Yeah, I will report back as fed to by a user experience that it is helpful, it is enjoyable, and confidence has certainly increased.
Awesome. All right. If all minds are clear, I have a motion for the Board of Ed to approve the ACT practice program, which includes the partnership with academic tutoring and test prep and the compensation of the D219 instructors at the hourly rate for 23 hours of preparation and instruction.
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay. You have a roll call?
Member Dr. Koh?
Yes.
Member Abraham?
Yes.
Member Wood?
Yes.
Member Noack?
Yes.
Member Stennett?
Yes.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Durr?
Yes. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have the cell phone update discussion. I believe Jeremy and Mr. Felton will be presenting that.
So I'll get us started for North. Cell phone practices in action. I really would like to admit, just, as a first-year principal, this was an extremely positive and wonderful initiative to roll out for the school community. Really helpful when you talk about this sense of belonging, created community, starting the school year off with some firm expectations. The one caveat that I shared with the students, the staff, our families, their guardians, we don't want this to feel punitive, okay? We really want to maximize instructional time. We are really trying to set them up for post-high school success, and this is important. So our school kicked off in regard to the cell phone practices with some common language and visuals for all of our instructional settings. That included study halls. One of our mantra is be responsible, be respectful, and be ready to learn. So that nice little visual over there, that punitive piece, we don't want it to feel punitive. So just pause your devices, you know what I mean? I compared it to boarding a plane and taking a flight, or if you're in a play or a public setting, as an adult or a young adult, you're going to be asked or required to pause on those devices. And we know that they are a distraction, and we know, again, that we all have issues with them, but we're going to teach these young adults really how to manage their time properly. So cell phone caddies in all of our classrooms and our study halls. We reviewed our cell phone policy and then shared communication out with students, staff, and the families. Also touched on it as a team a lot, touched on it in building meetings, touched on it in regard to our dean's communication to all of our staff, highlighted positives about it, highlighted where we were at. My first staff meeting I was able to highlight in August where we were at with cell phone infractions in 2023 and where we were at with cell phone infractions in 2024 in August. Even though it was small, it's still, success. It feels good, right? It feels good that the initiative was working. It felt really good that our students and staff bought in, decreased in cell phone related issues. Some of the data indicated also cell phone instances or incidents that were connected to cell phones, and that maybe social media disagreements, young adults sharing information that they should not be sharing. We saw a decrease in those types of or related issues connected to cell phones. Last but not least, our teachers reported students responded really well. Having that expectation really allowed them to lay out other classroom expectations, sense of belonging, combining that with greeting students at the door, getting students set up just for the class period. It became, we're almost at the end of first semester, but it really became a seamless transition to come into class ready to learn, drop your cell phone in the cell phone caddy, and let's get going as a team. Some minor disruptions that are being worked on as a team. We're going to work on those, and some of those stem from you are allowed to use your cell phone before school, after school, and during passing periods, and sometimes students do ask for a bathroom break, and they may slide their cell phone out of the caddy and take it on the bathroom break with them. And then we might have hallway supervisors or safety team members, right? There's an interaction there. Students reported it was challenging at first, but they really bought in. And then some students also reported that it really helped them focus on class. And, as a collective, I think it's going really well. And I'm looking forward to second semester and ways to really enhance this practice. Jeremy?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. The same kind of expectations that North had is what West had as well. We have only received one referral for phones. Really on the first day of school, we talked to staff about our conversations around what their expectations would be, and I think the staff really rallied around one another and supported one another, saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. And so really I have to say the staff has championed their expectations and put the onus of responsibility back on themselves to hold themselves accountable. So I will say that sometimes you go into a classroom and you may see a teacher that is using the cell phone, and then sometimes you go into another classroom and there's cell phones in the caddy. So I think the teachers have done a phenomenal job of encouraging themselves and holding themselves accountable to holding the line to what we want students to do. And so I'm happy with the progress of what our students have been able to do, and then more importantly, what our staff has encouraged our students to do as well.
How is this communicated to the parents?
Like an all-call Infinite Campus, all-call on the policy. I was also able to have a town hall meeting, and that was a part of my presentation in the beginning of the year.
I know for us, we've sent the information out in our weekly communication, encouraging our parents, telling them what our practices and protocols were and what the procedures were as well. But more importantly, I think the conversation for us was really with the staff and with the students more so, since they're kind of boots on the ground, so to speak. I mean, I kind of think they did a really phenomenal job with it.
I was just making sure that narrative is being shared.
I was actually just
Sounds like good progress.
I was actually just going to ask if Ken, maybe I would wonder if we have communicated the success to the parents. I mean, if this has increased focus in class, teachers are feeling more respected in class, able to actually, get done what needs to get done. I think parents would support that and kind of continue that positive cycle. So I am thrilled that at the building level that this was handled and taken care of, and in what sounds to be a very competent, capable way. So thank you both.
And I do want to be fair, honest, whatever it is. We could still find teachers if we said, hey, come forward. We could find a number of teachers that would come forward and say the board should ban cell phones. I just want that. I don't want anybody to say that we're saying everybody agrees this is the best way forward, but things are certainly better. We've seen a lot of people, a lot more buy-in, a lot more positivity. The results speak for itself, but there are still people that would want us to take a different path. I just want to say that.
I mean, I think it's clear, at the end of the day, our current students will be our future workers and workforce leaders, and they're not going to ban cell phones at the job. So they're preparing for the workforce now, and the ability to self-regulate and manage themselves starts here. So I think it's a reasonable expectation. And just like it has utility on the workforce, there's no way I can go to work without a cell phone. It's not even a matter of communicating, like surveys, pull it out, scan, SurveyMonkey, like you just use it, like anything else. It's a tool. And it can be used for bad things, and that's where regulation comes in. So, well, I think this is a great story, so I appreciate the positive outcomes that have been shared.
Thank you. We're going to stay.
Oh, okay. Attendance.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Well, good evening. I'm lucky to join Principal Felton and Principal Christian to talk about student attendance. We are going to share updated data. You heard a little bit of data at the school report card review from Ms. Gonzalez, but we'll dive a little bit deeper. And then we'll share strategies and interventions that are being implemented to help support and encourage student attendance. But before we do that, essential to our discussion and any discussions at the board table should be our mission, our commitment to providing equitable learning environments, embracing diversity and individual student needs, our vision that we want our students to be empowered when they leave us and graduate, and then our promise as educators to clear paths, provide bright futures, and make sure there's no limits on students. It's important to note the makeup of our student body that we'll discuss in tonight's presentation, and this is from data from the school report card in the school year 23-24. The total enrollment was 4,549 for the district, and then you can see the percent breakdown by race. Next, you have district enrollment by special services, so those students with, the percent of students with IEPs, percentage of low income status, homeless, English language learners. Again, this is something you saw in the school report card presentation. So let's talk about chronic absenteeism. And we talked last year and presented to the board on chronic absenteeism. But this is defined by ISB and regulations that when absences reach 10% of missed school days, so that's approximately 18 days in a 180-day school year. So you can see it doesn't discriminate between excused or unexcused. Both of those equal chronic absenteeism. So our first graph to look at is the percent of students who were chronically absent as it compares to the state. So this is our district data over time. So you can see pre-pandemic, pandemic, and then we're starting to make a tick down. We're starting to see some slight improvements. The hope is that we will continue improvements. This is not a District 219 issue. This is an Illinois issue and a national issue. In fact, the state superintendent, when he released his message on Illinois school report card, what continues to plague the state and the country is high school absences. That doesn't mean to say that we aren't continuing to try as much as we can to try to re-engage students. You've heard on multiple presentations today about our focus, which is the title of our presentation, All In. We're all focusing on increasing students' sense of belongingness, because as we've stated in many circles, that when students feel connected and a sense of belonging, they have a greater likelihood of attending school and being successful. This next graph is chronic absenteeism by school and a comparison with the district over time. So again, you're starting to see a trend down, but this is clearly the breakdown between Niles West, Niles North, and the district. This is comparing the percent of students who miss 10% or more with our percent of our enrollment by demographic. So you can see the state report card demographics as it compares to our enrollment. So the yellowish goldish color are the students who are considered chronically absent, and then the blue color is the percent of our enrollment in that demographic. And then the last side follows a similar pattern on chronic absenteeism and then special services enrollment, percent of enrollment. So I'm going to turn it over to Principal Felton.
So many factors influence and impact student attendance. This slide is just understanding what types of absences students acquire. Chronic illnesses, college visit days, extended family vacations, family emergencies, mental health days, non-school related competitions. We had club hockey players, club ice skaters, the arts, religious holidays, and some just flat out disengagement, lacking a sense of belonging, connection, in some ways school refusal.
If I could, Marlon, just to go back, because one thing people might not understand, the extended family vacations, that's actually kind of unique to us, which would skew us in a different, we'd be skewed higher because we have a larger immigrant population. And so it used to be, pretty recently, if you were visiting the Philippines and visiting family for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we knew you were, we'd unenroll you. And that was kind of common practice among schools. Now you keep them in school and they're absent. So it used to be unenroll and then re-enroll, which I understand why, but there's an intellectual dishonesty to that too. And so that actually increased this. And then the state talking about it, and whatever anybody's opinion about it is, when you add 5 mental health days to the calendar year, you're going to have a higher absence rate come up, because that's just what is going to occur, and that's something Illinois has seen since that was added. So I just wanted to point those two things out there, kind of unique factors we may not have thought about in the grand scheme.
So as a question on this list, which of these are excused and which of these are unexcused? I mean, I can guess one of them. I'm asking because I'm actually more curious about what our numbers are for unexcused student absences, and here's why. As somebody who has to take the day off for my religious holidays, that's an excused absence, I would hope, right? But that's also going to count in our numbers, right? Some years, my holidays fall during the week, which means I'm taking those days. Some years my holidays are going to fall on the weekend, so that's going to strangely skew our numbers and not really dig down into what the issue is. So I'm curious on this list, what's excused and what's unexcused?
Well, obviously, mental health days, that's excused. That's by law. Family emergencies, those be excused. I mean, any number of these minus the last bullet could or could not be excused or unexcused. With respect to extended family vacations, I think that is very much a strong impact in our district. I can't tell you how many families will be gone for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Lots. And that's a huge impact, not only for their education, but then also towards chronic absenteeism. So the principals have discretion of, is it 5? I can't recall.
We have a threshold of how many days we can excuse when parents request an extended absence, and that is 5 absences that we can excuse. Some of those are extenuating circumstances. They might not be extended family vacations. They might be family member passing away in another country. Okay, so it is a case-by-case basis, all the way up to the last one, but most of them are absent excused.
So do we have a sense of what our, I'm going to use the air quotes, true numbers are in terms of unexcused absences?
We can pull that data, and I know I don't want to speak for the dean teams, but they're looking at that every day. For ISB's perspective, it doesn't matter. It's a combination of both excused and unexcused, but certainly those unexcused absences look different than an excused one from the district's perspective. And those are students that they meet as problem-solving teams in both buildings. I mean, you'll, in a couple of slides, we talk about what's the system we have in place to monitor and what are we looking at.
And I think SB doesn't differentiate, but as schools, do we have any agency to push back against the premise or the definition?
Yes, because in the next slide, I think we're looking at chronic absenteeism, not absence, unexcused absences or excused absences. Okay, so when we're looking at chronic absenteeism, we're looking at, and this is just an example of a sporadic student who's absent. Those days could be mental health days, those days could be college visits, those days could be days out sick. Okay, so we're looking at that, and they're not a 10-day consecutive vacation request.
Those days could be my religious holidays.
They could be your religious holidays as well.
If I'm a Jewish college-bound student who occasionally takes a mental health day, right, who occasionally gets sick, that could be that calendar right there.
Yes. So in Principal Christian, we'll get into some of the multi-tiered systems of support when we're just looking at the entire student in regard to chronic absenteeism. Oh, I keep going backwards, sorry. Impacts of chronic absenteeism.
Quick question. Do you track absenteeism by days of the week? So like, do you have Monday absenteeism, Tuesday, Wednesday, so on?
Yeah, we could.
Have you seen a trend there? I mean, are the days that the students take for the 5 days that they have for mental health, are those Monday and Friday days typically to get an extended weekend out of it or something?
I mean,
We'd have to pull that.
We haven't really looked at that in anticipation, but that would be a good guess.
Well, it also will help the teachers knowing that if you're going to have a large number of students typically disappearing on Monday or Friday, that maybe you could change your class schedule and assignments, adjusting for that possibly, if there is a significant difference between the days. I was just curious.
Impacts of chronic absenteeism, academic performance, score lower on standardized tests, perform poorly in school, have difficulty graduating with us, social and behavioral, disengage from studies, disconnect from peers in the school community, may experience some isolation, definitely have a negative impact on their well-being, or have difficulty developing essential social skills and friendships. That social and behavior, sometimes there's more dean contact in that area. And with the suspensions, and I don't want to say drop out, but maybe a change in placement or change in building, so those ombudsman placements or things like that, where some students just need a half a day. Some students need credit recovery. Some students have to go to work. A full day of school doesn't really work for them. all-in approach, focus on students' sense of belongingness. When students feel a sense of belonging at school, they are more likely to attend and participate and achieve. We talked about this a lot tonight. This is there's like tons of ways we are focusing on improving students' sense of belongingness, our PLC structures, our PST structures, equity-focused SLOs with the admin team and our staff, family liaisons, district SEL focus on student sense of belonging, and district data monitoring systems. And then I also have in my notes here, Principal Christian and I, we meet with the CSL principals. We've met twice this year already, and both times we met on the agenda, they want to know, all of the principals, what are their school-wide attendance efforts or models, okay, in their school community. So we're always troubleshooting. This is not, and Bridget mentioned it earlier in regard to the state soup, saying this is not just a one school issue. This is not just an issue in our community, it's an issue across the community. So just trying to continue to dialogue and collaborate on, school-wide attendance efforts and models, and just, what are some of the best practices, that our kids can respond to. All-in approach, this one was mine too, and I kind of spoke to the all-in approach. I'm sorry, Principal Christian. But yeah, we're responsible for our students' attendance. Everybody's on board. It does not live with one person, one department, or just one anything. If we are truly a school community, then we do include student attendance needs in everything we do, and we make sure we look at it as a team, and we have a team-focused approach to addressing it. That includes, I mentioned with the cell phones, greeting students at the door, checking in. You greeted them yesterday. You didn't see them 2 days in a row after that. What's going on? Do I need to call a counselor? Do I need to call a dean? Do I need to call home? So it is everybody's responsibility to make sure our students get to school every day. Principal Christian.
As we talk about this all-in approach, we want to have a multi-tiered model where we are making sure that our students are supported at each level from a Tier 1 perspective, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So what we're going to do is look at Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. But before we do that, if you look at our panorama student success, you can look at the bolded items there. Highly engaged students are 57% less likely to be chronically absent, and this is why engagement is very important, and why we talk about believe, belong, and become. SEL and behavior, students who report low social awareness are 2.5 times more likely to have one or more behavior incidents, which could also then take them out of that learning environment with other extended times for things that may have to occur within the classroom or outside of the classroom to curb that behavior. SEL and coursework, students who report high self-management are 75% less likely to face failing grades. So when you look at that information from Panorama and how students are able to succeed, it helps kind of wrap your mind around the different types of supports that we can give our students. So when we talk about Tier 1 strategies and interventions, we are trying to make sure that our staff has professional development where they've attended various PDs to help attendance initiatives. I know that there was one offered at North Cook last month, and we had a couple of people go to that. We're doing some attendance contests between homerooms and departments and grade levels to make sure that our students are not only there, but they're on time. If you're a parent, you've received, or hopefully you have received, some of those weekly attendance reports and bi-weekly post surveys to make sure that we're having a targeted outreach for all of our students, having those monthly reminders and identifying and addressing common barriers to some of our students that are not inside of the classroom on a daily or consistent basis. So those are things we're doing at the Tier 1 level to help support those students as well. And we want to make sure that we're encouraging them to be in class, because we know that when they're in class, they have a likelihood to succeed versus that of them being out of the class. Tier 2, we want to make sure, and we have made sure, that our calls and text messages are going home in that students' preferred language. Also, something new that we've started is where not only do you have the deans or the counselors, but I'm a very big believer that if a student is on the football team and that student is not showing up, the dean and counselor, that's great, but their coach is going to make a heavier impact. Their sponsor is going to make a heavier impact if they're in a club, whatever it may be. So how can we engage those sponsors and those coaches in that wraparound service and that conversation with the student, with the parent, in order to make sure that we have a holistic conversation about the needs of the student. Obviously, attendance probation, planning meetings, home visits, if those things are necessary, and that tier 2 strategy and intervention. And then tier 3, intensive case management and wraparound services, community resources, and then weekly our PST teams, they meet and they're discussing individual students. For severe cases, we may conduct a home visit to see exactly what we can do to support the parent, support the student, and hopefully engage that student back into the learning environment on a more consistent basis. And so when we talk about attendance matters, we know that it matters all day, and we know that it matters every day. And so one of the things that we've tried to do is make sure that we support our students, but also provide information to our parents to make sure that they know when their student is not there, it is very, very, very detrimental to their academic success and eventually their career success.
In terms of attendance, have you looked into like attendance records of like sophomores, juniors, and seniors within driver's ed? So I know like that there's a certain requirement of, I know you can only have like 14 absences or not. And if some of like that motivation has like helped students or not, you know, be more successful, or how are some of the like certain requirements of that class be able to like infiltrate in other parts of the school?
From my perspective, no, not as it relates to driver's ed, but that's actually a great thing for us to talk about at our State of the School address. I do plan on talking about attendance and cell phones, congratulating them, but I also want to talk to them about their attendance and their lack of attendance, because just as you just mentioned, if they're in driver's ed and they're missing those classes, then most of them want to get their license. So that is actually a good point to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, just teaching in a district where there's a lot of attendance issues, and even like I'm, you know, always talking with the student, teaching driver's ed, and always talking to the students like, you're just teetering on, you know, like what's going on, and you know, like you pay for the class too, and you know, I want you to be able to get the license. So hey, what's going on? What other services? So sometimes I've used that as a way to use other wraparound services and engage them in a way that I hadn't had access before.
I was going to make a comment. One of the workshops I saw at the ISB conference was around the surprising power of belonging in schools. And there was a premise or statement that was made by the speaker that belonging in schools has been declining internationally for the last decade. I thought it was a pretty bold statement, but then he went to kind of present data to support what he was saying. And he was saying that, you know, the benefits of belonging is they're more motivated to learn, our students, they perform better academically, they have better attendance, there's less misconduct, and they have higher self-esteem and better mental health. So I'm curious, from your perspective, do you see chronic absenteeism as a key risk or performance indicator? Because like we have all these things related to belonging, right? Like tonight we talked about the summits. A key piece of that is for belonging, but we only have so much participation in that. We have our sports programs, which instills a culture of belonging, but you only have so much participation in that. You've got your after-school clubs and your student activities, and they're all designed basically around to foster that sense of belonging. You've got student counseling, which adds to that. And like I wonder, because like one of the examples they had showed was, I thought this was kind of strange, but one district had, for students that were having behavior challenges, they were trying to basically move from a punitive to a restorative practice. So they said instead of doing a bunch of detentions. Instead, they had them participate in after-school clubs. And then they like showed the data, and the engagement, because of that engagement from participating in those clubs and making those connections between students and staff, their academics started improving, their attendance was improving, even their engagement in class and their participation was improving. So it says like it is, the root cause is belonging, not actually attendance. Attendance is like this side effect of not belonging, right?
Right. So, whoops. One of the other piece of the Panorama Success Platform that the board was so gracious to approve for the district to purchase is the green headers: attendance, behavior, and grades. So we monitor every student in our district, and you saw this presentation before, and it comes up as green, yellow, and red, and it's looking at attendance, behavior, and grades. And this enables us to take a look at who's in the yellow and the red and dive in as a problem-solving team. Well, what's happening for this particular student, and target interventions to support that student. So all of these variables impact attendance. And to your point, Mebberger, about belongingness and chronic absenteeism, that's a symptom. I will say this, you'll see a panorama update. We present this every year after winter break. We do see an increase in students' sense of belongingness. And that's a trend. I don't want to misquote, but it was an uptick in both buildings and district-wide on a sense of belongingness. Again, it's just something that we're noticing and taking a look at the interventions we're putting in place with the hope that this is what's making this collective effort, the initiatives that we're all doing centering on belongingness. We're hoping that that continues to move the needle each year.
Yeah, because I'm curious, do we have the data insights that we're collecting on the student population to see trends in chronic absenteeism where it's not, excused absences, and correlate that with engagement and participation in the things that we have that are targeted interventions for belonging?
Right, that's exactly what we do. We start to drill down and see where the correlations are. Who are the students who are showing up as yellow? It may be attendance and grades only, and maybe they're starting to rack up some consequences of unexcused absences in the behavior, but we're starting to come up with some hypothesis about what's happening for the student. Then we drill down with teachers as we start to identify who are those students who need some support, and then we bring in multiple members of the team who see the student every day, including teachers, counselors, psychologists, social workers, to then problem solve around what is happening and take a look at all of the variables you're talking about. What's happening in the classroom, what's their engagement like, are they involved in anything? I do like the idea of an alternative consequences clubs. That is interesting
I just
comment.
would be curious, are they in the summits? Are they in any after-school clubs? Are they in any sports? Are they just simply coming to school? I suspect that's probably the case. They're just coming to school. And because that's all they're doing, they don't have the added benefit of the social connections to whatever it is that they might be going through that's causing the absenteeism, along with the academic challenges and the behavior issues.
And the other piece to add is this is a big part of the PLC work of the deans in both buildings. Attendance was their goal, and looking at who are the students that occupy missing school, what's the racial demographic, what are some of the reasons that it's happening, and they're targeting interventions for those specific groups of students. So that's something that we've been, we started last year and continuing this year.
Well, thank you very much. I think this is a very important topic and look forward to getting continuous updates on how we're moving the needle.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the 2024 property tax resolution discussion and action. And James and Sarah, or just
Good
James?
evening, everybody. Oh, there goes my voice. All right. So what's that? Sarah is at home with her son. Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think, the nice thing between Sarah and I, we figured out kind of a nice pace and it's a good relationship and we've made a good team. So this is part 2 of the levy process. So in November, we presented the tentative. There are no changes between the tentative levy and the final levy that we're recommending this evening. Just on a kind of quick recap, the levy represents 88% of our overall revenue that's collected by the district. So this is a critical component to making sure that we have the appropriate funds necessary to pay our teachers, make sure that our kids have the appropriate resources, make sure that we keep the lights on and the heat on and all those key components of how we function. Just want to kind of recap a few things. So Cook County is under the property tax extension limitation law. That limits the amount of money that the district can levy to either CPI or 5%, whichever is less. And so this is a year based upon last calendar year CPI index of 3.4%, which we can levy or will be able to capture 3.4%. Our levy is inflated on purpose to capture all available resources available to the district in new property. And that's an element that is currently unknown because it hasn't been released by the county yet. So that's why we do inflate. This does not mean that our homeowners will see a 3.4% increase in taxes or will see a 4% increase. That number is dictated by the Cook County clerk as they go through their records and they look at the assessment process itself. So it could fluctuate property to property, but Cook County is unique because residents are taxed at a lesser rate compared to commercial industrial property. So they basically, commercial industrial is taxed at 25%, a homeowner is taxed at 10%, and then the county applies an equalizing factor to balance those pieces out. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm losing my voice today.
Jim, so just to make sure that the audience at home is clear on this, there is no direct correlation between voting yes on this and an increase in property taxes.
No, there's no correlation.
All right. Tom, I think you need to get your team some honey and cough drops. There's a lot of tissues out here.
They gotta toughen up.
Hey, rub a little dirt on it.
Too soon, bro. Too soon.
So this evening, what you're going to see in the packet is all of the appropriate resolutions that go with that. Just want to kind of highlight how those are structured. The first 3, the certificate of levy, the certificate of tax resolution, are filed with the county clerk. The levy has to be filed by the last Tuesday in December, so that actually turns out to be New Year's Eve. We will be doing that on Friday. So we do it early just to make sure it's done. Certificate of compliance of truth in taxation, that is a requirement. Typically, if you were to levy over 5%, you would have a truth in taxation hearing. We do not need to do that, but the certificate itself has to be filed saying that we are in compliance with truth in taxation. We do have a legal counsel that specializes in the tax levy process review our levy to ensure we are in compliance, and he did indicate that we are. The instructions on how to appropriate the 2024 tax levy basically says to the county, hey, we know that you've inflated the levy. These are the areas that we want to reduce the levy in, and basically our approach is to proportionately reduce it across all the funds. So it's just how we do that. So the county needs to have that. And the last piece is that there is a state law that allows the county to recapture some prior year PTAB components of Property Tax Appeals Board. And those are monies that we don't levy for. They're just allocated to the state and to the county that are distributed to us. Those are going into our working cash fund. And so basically, those are unknown at this point in time. We're just telling the county that when those monies come, you're going to put them into our working cash.
Okay. So up for action tonight is 3 separate motions?
3 separate motions, yes, sir.
Okay, so the first one to approve, the second one,
Can we clarify that? There's only 2 listed on the memo. What's the third motion?
The third is motion for the board to approve the resolution authorizing monies from the levy adjustment for 2024 as presented.
Did somebody update the memo?
We did.
Could be one. There it is. Thank you.
Renwick?
So I have a couple
Yes,
questions,
sir.
Jim. So they may be snarky, so I'm not trying to kill the messenger.
No,
It's-
completely understand.
You know, as Deming has quoted, a bad system will always kill a good individual. So my first question is how, okay, the 4.97% increase, how is that necessary increase for district goals balanced with Niles Township taxpayers' concerns? Where in our process, which is a state process and a terrible process, but where is the taxpayer involved in this decision-making? Because from my perspective, we ask for the max, we get the consumer price index every year, and we spend it.
Correct.
But when do we measure the burden of taxes on a district compared to other districts or other parts of the state to say, wow, we're really at the peak, or we're number 1 in terms of burden rate on our taxpayers? And once we reach that pinnacle of burden, when do we respond to the taxpayer and say, hey, we got to do some serious reflecting and cutting or adjusting to lessen that burden? Because unfortunately, that element is missing. And I'm not blaming you, that's the process.
Great.
And, but
Yeah,
I wish there was something that could be added to that in terms of that, that element.
It's an element in which the board, right, if you are looking to seek public feedback, right, once the tentative is released, right, it is, right, that's why it's a multifaceted process. That's why we do the tentative first, so it is then, in a sense, on public record as this has been passed by the board. The board has sole discretion on what the levy amount is. We make the recommendation as the administration. And then, one of the things you could implement related to this is just a standing policy and procedure that regardless of what the levy amount is, you hold a public hearing. It's not required as a 5% because we're under, but it does bolster that transparency. The hard piece with this is that every school district does exactly what we do.
Yes.
And so to get the metrics that you're looking for would be difficult because we're all different. The equalized assessed value of every district is different. And so to say one district versus another district is overtaxed, undertaxed is really difficult. I think it's a piece that we can continue to monitor, but because we are so heavily reliant on local property taxes, it's a piece in which I'm not doing my due diligence by making a recommendation that's anything less than what we should capture.
You're doing what you're supposed to do.
If I could, Joe, because I appreciate the spirit of your question, and this is something Jim and I have talked about, and at the January board meeting, I plan to talk about some long-term, not necessarily projections, but focuses on spending and how we spend and what we choose to spend on in terms of we can't wait to react to a crisis. And additive can't be the model that we default to. And we know that there is going to be federal cuts in education spending. When you factor in ESSER spending and what occurred, there's going to be massive cuts across the country in education spending. And to think that we roll merrily along without that affecting us and without that affecting our taxpayers, because I take very seriously the hard work people put in and what they invest in us. And I do think it's something that we can talk about in a way that's maybe differently as we go forward to understand that we have to plan instead of just all of a sudden having to react and do cataclysmic things to our educational system.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Moore, because you just answered my second question, and that is exactly it. You know, with the projected potential losses that we're seeing from the other 12% that we collect, none of us know how severe
Correct.
those will be, but it'll be impactful. And so we need to proactively be ready and take those actions.
Yeah, there, to Superintendent Poor's point, and to your point, you're already seeing the curtail and the reduction, right? ESSER funding is expired. Corporate personal property replacement tax was overinflated 2 years ago by 228%. There's been a 173% reduction, and that's going to continue to get reduced. So revenues as they were during the height, investments, you're looking at the return on investment, you know, where even 3 months ago it was over 5%. The new model I just saw as of today from the investments is sitting at about 4%. So we're going to start not being able to gain as much as we were because the market conditions have equalized, and we're well post the pandemic and then the ESSER funds that came in.
And the last comment I had was 4.97% increase, 0.03 of a point under the 5. It comes across as a little bit gimmicky from the community standpoint that we're doing that intentionally to avoid having the actual community engagement and have that meeting, and I just, it's perception too sometimes. And I just want to make sure that the public, trust our transparency, and this is an actual number that we're trying to chase down to capture everything that we can capture, and not just staying 0.03 under 5% threshold, so we don't have to do
I would be willing to examine almost every Cook County one, and they're all going to be sitting at 497, 498, 499. It is the common practice, because a lot of districts don't do exactly as we're doing. That's why I did say that if the board would like to have that as a public transparency item, as just a standing practice, if regardless of the levy amount, we can do a public hearing. That's easy to facilitate. We know the process that needs to be released to the press in order to do that, and then it's just a matter of a public hearing in which we're presenting the levy.
So I'm just going to end. Thank you for all the reports, the timeliness, the accuracy, and the detail that you put into this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's nice to see that we're following the timeline as we should to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
If that were a board policy, where would that fall?
It wouldn't be a policy, it'd just be procedure.
Procedure?
Yeah, it would be just a procedure that the business office would put in place as part of the levy hearing. A part of the levy process is that we would do the tentative we have to do because we have to have a resolution related to passing of the tentative. But we would just say that when we're doing the final levy hearing, we would then have it as a public hearing, regardless of whatever the levy amount was. It's an easy practice.
Okay. All right. Let's start with the first one here. We have a motion for the Board of Education to approve the 2024 tax levy resolution as presented.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? May I have a roll call?
Member Noack?
Yes.
Member Stennett?
Yes.
Member Dr. Coe? Member Abraham?
Yes.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Wood?
Yes.
Member Durr?
Yes. We have a motion for the Board of Education to instruct the Cook County Clerk on how to apportion the 2024 tax levy extension reduction as presented.
So moved.
You have a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? We have a roll call?
Member Dr. Coe? Member Noack?
Yes.
Yes.
Member Wood?
Yes.
Member Stennett?
Yes.
Member Abraham?
Yes.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Durr?
Yes. And finally, may I have a motion for the Board of Education to approve the resolution authorizing monies from the levy adjustment for 2024 levy as presented?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? We have a roll call?
Member Stennett?
Yes.
Member Abraham? Yes. Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Noack?
Yes.
Member Wood?
Yes.
Member Dr. Koh?
Yes.
Member Dur?
Yes. All right, thank you, James.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have the notice of remedy discussion and action. Ray?
I would recommend going to the motion and reserving the discussion for closed for this item.
We have a motion for the Board of Education to approve the resolution authorizing issuance of the notice of remedial warning and related action to Nick Tereso as directed in closed session.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We have a roll call.
Member Abraham?
Yes.
Member Wood?
Yes.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Noack?
Yes.
Member Dr. Koh?
Yes.
Member Stennett?
Yes.
Member Dur?
Yes. Next, we have the settlement agreement and release discussion and action.
Yeah, we had a an injury at Niles West a few years ago. The case went to trial and it was recommended for settlement. There are some key takeaways, I think, for us as a district and how we use our vendors and how we communicate with our vendors. So after the board does approve this, I plan on having conversations with our vendors to make sure our buildings the vendors are working at our direction, especially when school is out and we have visitors on the weekends as well.
All right. We have a motion for the Board of Education to approve the settlement and release agreement with Louise and Julie Noriega as discussed in closed.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We have a roll call.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Noack?
Yes.
Member Dr. Koh?
Yes.
Member Stennett?
Yes.
Member Wood?
Yes.
Member Abraham?
Yes.
Member Dur?
Yes. Next, we have the admin tuition reimbursement discussion and action.
Yep, this last item is a recommendation to change the way we currently have our admin tuition reimbursement. Currently, within each administrator's contract, there is a $2,000 per year tuition reimbursement. The board for a while now has been actively exploring ways to address the educator shortage that is in our nation right now, that is in our state, as well as the leadership shortage. And so we did, together with the union, address some of the educator shortage concerns, such as tier 2 tuition reimbursement, more competitive salaries, benefits, etc. The board also did increase the raises for administrators and confidential employees as well. We do believe this is one way where we can start to encourage and strategize more grow your own leaders within our district. So the recommendation is to increase that amount for any administrator pursuing their principal's endorsement to $4,000 per year, and then superintendent's endorsement to $6,000 per year.
We have a motion for the Board of Education to approve the resolution authorizing amendment of administrator tuition reimbursement for fiscal year 2025.
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? You have a roll call?
Member Noack?
Yes.
Member Wood?
Yes.
Member Dr. Koh?
Yes.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Abraham?
Yes.
Member Stennett?
Yes.
Member Dur?
Yes. Thank you, Ray. All right. Is there any new business? Member Noack?
So my new business is a comment that I want to, for the public that's watching, as well as our fellow board members, to recognize on item 13C, the individual contribution year 3 of 10. I wish to publicly thank Barry Berger, Niles West High School alumnus, who is donating $75,000 to be used for educational purposes that benefit students at Niles West. The 2024-25 contribution is part of a 10-year donor commitment from Mr. Berger totaling $500,000. So thank you, Mr. Berger, publicly.
All right. Awesome. Member Wood?
A couple of things. One, is our caps and gowns site back up? For the kids who were, the site crashed, we were trying to get caps and gowns ordered.
Marlon, any idea? Jeremy, anything?
Is it back up?
Wasn't aware of it.
Nor was I. Hasn't been brought to my attention.
We should have a conversation later then, okay?
Check.
Thank you. I think actually Julian sent an email. Thank you for posting the calendars for the next few school years on the website. Ray, I really appreciate you taking care of that. I know there are some parents who are trying to do some planning, and I think that that was incredibly helpful to have those on there. And they have shown these parents have shown appreciation for the board's foresight of having multiple years on the website. The other thing I wanted to say was thank you so much for allowing me to attend the III conference. I thought it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun to be able to present with Tom and Joe, our attorney. And assuming the district allows, I look forward to going again next year.
All right. Next, we have the superintendent's report.
All right. Last week, the Cook County Commissioner's Office hosted the first Language Access Summit at Oakton College. D219 partnered with Commissioner Morita's office to discuss strategies to address challenges faced by government, schools, libraries, and nonprofit groups. Cook County is one of the most linguistically diverse counties in the country, and this is a great opportunity to share resources and hear from other groups about language access across the spectrum of experiences. D219's family liaisons were part of the session on schools at the summit. We appreciate the involvement of the Equity Department and our Communications Department to facilitate conversations about improving efforts around language access, not just for our students, but for all the people in the area. Christine and I were at Oakton College on Monday morning this week, and we had a meeting with the area schools that that feed into Oakton Community College and the other high schools in the area to talk about our students who are going there, what the results are of our students going there, what more we can do to build bridges and partnerships, and very productive meeting with a lot of good information shared. Today at Niles North, we had a fantastic lunch. We partnered with the Skokie Rotary Club to showcase student work. We had a mini concert. We highlighted community service, and the culinary students at Niles North prepared lunch for 40 Rotary Club guests with music from the choir in the background. There was also a presentation by Dance Marathon students who talked about their fundraising efforts for the Chicago Refugee Coalition this year. It was a great day. The Rotary members continuously told me that this is their favorite Rotary meeting of the year, and that the food was way better than some of the other places the meetings are held, but I won't say anything bad about those places. But our kids did a great job. They made the food, they served the food. It was great. And the spirit of giving, as we talked about, that continues to thrive throughout the district. In addition to directly supporting D29 students through grants, the Education Foundation has launched the Giving Tree at Old Orchard. You can choose ornaments representing D219 students who will receive gift cards and donations for the holidays. Visit the Education Foundation's website to get details or to make a donation. If you're board, because nobody's busy at all this time of year and you have time at night, please check the calendars on both of our schools for fine arts events at Niles West and Niles North. There's literally something every night. Students in choir, band, and orchestra have evening concerts throughout this month. And it's been just great to be around the kids and to see so many of the different performances. I also want to note, as we did earlier with our students that are here, next week is the close of the first semester. In some classes, they'll be having capstone projects. In some other classes, they still have some exams. Schedule is linked on our website. Good luck to all of our students on finishing the semester strong and preparing for a great second semester, and then to have an extended break. And I have to say, coming from a different part of the country, I am a big fan of the way the calendar is done here and throughout the area, with a full 2-week break where exams are done and kids can get this break in the middle of the year. I think it's really important for our students, for our families, and to have a chance to exhale before we begin the closing stretch for the second half of the school year. And with that, I wish everybody well.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Moore. Next, we have our board committee reports. Member Noack?
So the Facilities Committee met December 2nd, and several items will be presented to the board for approval at our next Finance Committee meeting. But just to quickly summarize some of them, there was the bids for Niles Central and Niles West Edition were all opened and reviewed at that meeting, and very pleased that we had a significant number of bidders and that the range of the bids was quite appropriate. So I'm very confident that that was a very thorough and accurate bidding process. We're also going to wind up getting a new tow truck, right? Not tow truck, a snow plow truck, salt truck, and that'll be that's through the cooperative, and it's going to be retiring one that's quite old. And fortunately, I think it was Member Wood that suggested taking some of our old vehicles and selling them back or trading them in for the cost of this, and that was done. So we've lowered the cost of this item. And there was one more. Oh, and then there's the furniture at Niles West in terms of where the student teachers lounge is, right? I don't recall if there's anything else that I missed. Yes, the Howard Street potential sale, but I think there's more news coming up for that, right?
So there is a public bid opening going to Howard Street on Friday. The bid opening is at 1 o'clock, so it's a sealed bid with a hold hard. It's basically a limit to, right, we have a starting limit at what it is. We know there's one party that's interested in the property itself, but we've also been told that Niles Park District has renewed interest in the property. So those will be brought forth in finance for review and approval.
Thank you.
We will be wishing upon a star. Just a quick update on the large member district quarterly meeting that happened on, it was November 1st. I wasn't able to provide an update last we met on it. But basically, they went through the strategic areas of focus for 2025, and the focus will be division events, leadership, and training. They're going to be working on updating the training and communication protocols to ensure inclusion and engagement of each division. They're going to evaluate their current processes and marketing around division meetings, and the joint annual conference. They're looking to expand and enhance that, and then they're website in terms of their online learning opportunities for IASB. And that's a good segue into the 2024 Joint Annual Conference that took place that Member Wood mentioned on November the 22nd. There was 120 sessions with about 9,000 participants. And one of those very important sessions was Which Hat Am I Wearing? Board Member Conundrums. And some of the outstanding panelists for that session were Board Member Wood, Superintendent Moore, and our partners Joseph Pekulski and Catherine Locallo. And I think Member Stennett would like to make a few comments about the session.
I was fortunate to attend the workshop, and I had the pleasure and honor of going last year to the joint conference and have attended, workshops. And I will be honest, you guys had a really dynamic workshop. It was scenario-based, it was engaging. I think for, as a board member, it was very helpful, so. Good job, you guys. Good job. Shut up.
All right. Thank you very much. Next, information items. The information for FOIA and monthly financial reports have been provided. And wow, I think that's actually it. It's before midnight. Wow. Well, before we change our mind, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, it's the quickest I've ever. You have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Member Abraham?
Yes.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Dr. Coe? Member Wood?
Yeah.
Member Stennett?
Yes.
Member Noack?
Yes.
Member Durr?
Yes. The motion carries. Have a great evening, everyone.